Hello, everybody, and thank you very much indeed for joining our value-packed webinar on effective virtual teamwork. I'm Tobias from SwissNext China. Our mission here at SwissNext China is to connect the dots between Switzerland and China in the fields of education, research, and innovation. Besides our location here in Shanghai, our global network also has locations in Brazil, India, Boston, and San Francisco. Now, I don't want to take away any time at all from our amazing expert speakers, Sarah and Chris, and from our equally amazing and very charismatic moderator, Andre Giesiger. Andre Giesiger is the Chief Client Officer at GlowCoach. GlowCoach offers executive coaching online and helped organize this webinar together with SwissNext China. At this point, I also want to give a quick shout out to Alex Hung, who kindly helped with the coordination of this webinar. So Andre, without any further delay, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for this kind introduction, Tobias. It's a pleasure to be here with SwissNext. Being Swiss, of course, this is close to my heart, as well as the topic of talking about a topic that focuses on virtual communication and collaboration. Today, we will have 1 hour. So quickly to outline what we will do, we have 3 sections. I will shortly introduce you to the 2 speakers, and after each presentation, there will be a Q&A section where you can ask questions, and then we will finish with a panel discussion. And hopefully we'll have some interesting dialogue, and it will allow you again to bring in questions that you have. Please do note that you can type questions in any time in the chat box. Let us know, and what we will do, the team here will curate them and will read them out for you so that we can answer them. Please, as a reminder, turn off cameras and mute microphones as usual. And so then, without further ado, let me introduce our 2 distinguished speakers today. First and foremost, I would say it's Sarah here. Dr. Sarah Genner is a researcher focusing on the impact of digital media on people, society, and the workplace, I should say. She's dedicated to bridging the gap between science and its practical applications, and has taught at the Zurich University of Applied Sciences from 2010 to 2018. She was also a visiting researcher at the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society at Harvard University. Dr. Sarah Genner is a visiting researcher currently at the Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, and she also lectures at several universities in Switzerland. She regularly contributes to columns at the NZZ, that's the Neue Zürcher Zeitung, a leading Swiss newspaper, among other channels. She holds a PhD from the University of Zurich in Communications and Media Studies, and she was awarded the Mercator Award for her dissertation on the societal impacts caused by the mobile internet. So that's Sarah. The second person, distinguished speaker today, is Chris. Chris has over 15 years of operational experience in global pharmaceutical companies here in China, Japan, and the UK. Currently, Chris is the head of operations at Eddingpharm, where he is responsible for supply chain, manufacturing, and R&D in China and Europe. He successfully integrated the manufacturing side of a leading multinational pharmaceutical company into the local firm's operations. Prior to joining Eddingpharm, Chris was head of operations at GSK China, where he was recognized for his work with the GSK Global Manufacturing Supply Chain President's Award. Chris holds a BA in pharmaceutical engineering from Tianjin University. So, now, as we've done these introductions, what I would like to do is hand over to Sarah and have her start her presentation. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction and for the invitation. So I'm going to start, and I will have quite a few slides. And so you hear me say next slide quite a few times. So good morning and welcome to my talk about virtual teamwork. I may be an expert, but all of you are experts right now because we're in difficult times, and some of us have been forced to learn this quite quickly, and if we haven't done this before. So you can use the next slide. And as Andre mentioned, I worked a lot on human factors and digital technology. I published a book and some studies. And on the next slide, you see what we are experiencing quite now. In Switzerland, Zoom has become this huge platform. I don't really know how it is in China. I know that in different countries we have other video conferencing tools that are being used quite often, but Zoom in Switzerland certainly has started taking off during this COVID-19 crisis. On the next slide, you'll see why some of us are really tired being in video conferencing calls all day long. And the study showed the so-called Zoom fatigue, which may apply to all the others, all the other video conferencing tools. And I'd like to highlight the multitasking aspect. As we're sitting in our offices, some of us may not even wear pants, but most of us will try to work on the side as well. Others will not see that we're on the phone, but then we're working on different levels, and this can be quite tiring. On the next slide, I would like to show you that in a time like this, where there's a very fast change and coming to us, and we have to accept this change. And it's very normal that we're going to difficult emotional responses. I'd like to highlight the research of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who showed this curve, this grief cycle that most of us humans go through when something really hard happens, like a shock, like this crisis that hit really fast. We first go into denial, oh, it's not that bad, and usually we get frustrated and even depressed after a while before we start to accept change. So it's important to accept that it's normal to go through these phases, and that change is not linear. The cycle is not linear. We might go through these phases many times. So this is so important when you collaborate with others to realize where you are on this curve and where others might be. It may help to be more empathetic. On the next slide, I'd like to show you how we can remain productive. A lot of people think only hard work will make them productive, but actually we need hard work plus many other things. We need time off, we need exercise, we need healthy eating and sleep. This, you all know this. This is just a little reminder to actually take breaks and not to forget to sleep, especially because it's so, the boundaries are blurring when you work from home and you're always on and always online and connected. It's important to actually take time off work, even though you are home and your home office is always there. The next slide will tell you that it's important to improve your posture. It's very tempting to sit on the couch and work from your laptop, but this can be really bad for your back, and so it's important to move and actually get a really good chair to sit in and to have a good posture. The next slide emphasizes that to collaborate well in general, not only digitally, we need trust over control. People in teams stay motivated much more if people feel they're being trusted, even though now it's harder for bosses to actually control if their employees are working hard. People are working better if they're in an environment of trust. On the next slide, I like to highlight that this is why it's important to make time for informal talk with your team. Maybe you can have a coffee break every morning at 9, for example. This doesn't have to be mandatory for the whole team, but it's a possibility to meet up and talk about informal stuff, the way you would do it at the coffee machine or at the water dispenser at your office, and actually know how people are feeling. This will help to feel more empathetic towards collaborators who may have a hard time looking after their kids and working from home. The next slide is about motivation again. I can't stress this enough. Motivation and perseverance are more important than skill. It's important to have skilled team members, but if they're not motivated and if they don't realize this is a marathon in general, the work life, and this crisis may be a marathon instead of a sprint as well, skill doesn't really help. The next slide is about skills. There are a lot of digital skills that are important right now if you want to collaborate virtually and digitally. And this is my favorite model for this. It's about digital security, good passwords. It's about digital identity, about digital literacy. And it's a lot about critical thinking, knowing when there is enough screen time. And I would like to highlight the digital emotional intelligence again. For online collaboration, you need social and emotional awareness and empathy towards your other team members. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to really collaborate well. The next slide is about misunderstandings. It's clear that once people collaborate together, once they communicate, misunderstandings will happen. It's very normal. And in a digital setting, this is even worse. It's so much harder to actually to express what you want to say through a mediated space. So you have to accept there will be misunderstandings and try to make yourself as clear as possible and explain in the most simple way as possible. Next slide is again about communications and why we sometimes have this misunderstandings. This is one of the most important models in communication psychology, why we have misunderstandings between the sender and the receiver, because a message always is not only, it doesn't always contain factual information, it's always about the relationship between the sender and receiver. So there are many layers of potential misunderstandings. So again, try to be as clear as possible in your communication. The next slide is about boundary management. This one is about shared documents. I was going to say you can prepare your meetings online and you can share documents in advance, but again, you have to make clear that what these documents are about and why you're sharing them. Shared documents are not shared understanding. The next one is actually about boundary management. People differ greatly in the way they prefer to mix work and leisure or to separate them. So we're all on a scale between integrators and separators. And some really like to blend work and leisure, and some would like to take this apart. So for some, it's really important, especially working from home, to set clear boundaries in terms of space and time, when they work and not, and they have to tell their collaborators when they're not going to be available and connected for work. The next slide is again about this topic. It's important to take some predictable time off. Most of us get really tired if we're always at work in our heads. So if we're always connected and if we're always looking at our phones, if there's a new email, then this is not really healthy for most of us. So make sure your collaborators know that you will take the evenings off or the weekend off and you will not be connected during the weekend. The next slide is exactly about this again. We have to talk how to communicate. We have to talk about this. There's more and more possibilities to communicate. We have more and more channels, potential channels to communicate with each other, but we need to communicate more about how to use these. Because now we have, in China, I know you have WeChat, in Switzerland we have WhatsApp a lot. And for some people, WhatsApp is a very private channel or only for emergencies. And for other people, they think, oh, I can use this like email. So you really have to talk about this and how to use this. And I really recommend using mostly email, because that's maybe an old channel. This is not probably what you think is very innovative, but there's this auto reply possibility with email. And you can actually use this to say you're not connected until 3 days, and only in case of emergency you want to be connected on your cell phone. So I think this really helps. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion and seeing what differences that we have between Switzerland and China. And thank you very much for listening.
Great. Thank you very much, Sarah. Appreciate those insights. There's a few questions that already are popping up, but I would like to start here one that you mentioned. You're stipulating that people go through phases in adjusting and accepting change at the beginning of your presentation. So what are some of the factors that you need to look out for to reduce that trough in the curve you showed of frustrations and depressions, both for yourself and of course your team?
I think the most important thing is to accept that this happens. This will really help you to know that it's very normal to go through these stages. So if you fight this too hard, then you're going to be they're worse off. So you have to tell yourself it's okay not to be okay sometimes, and then this will go away, and there's going to be a new phase where you're going to be more happy and be more accepting. Another thing that I use, and I think is very useful to use, is to practice gratitude. If you focus on what you have, for example, right now, this is a major global crisis that we're in, but if you focus on the fact that you have a place to live, you have food, you have clean water, you have loved ones, you may still have work and a job, and many others don't. You can't take this for granted. This will help you focus on what you have and not what you think you've lost. And every crisis is an opportunity to learn, and also to learn to be patient. And right now, I think a lot of people are going through hard times, but they also realize it's nice to relax a little bit, not to move and travel all the time, maybe stay at home and do nice stuff like baking, spending time with their families. So there's always a good sign, even if it's a bad crisis. So.
Okay. I just want to have a quick follow-up question on practicing gratitude you mentioned. What are some of the formats of practicing gratitude? Maybe you can give us one or two suggestions that have proven to be successful for people.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting people advocating gratitude is Brother David Steindl-Rast. He even gave a TED Talk. You maybe want to look this up. And I think what he does is write down in a journal, in a gratitude journal, every night, 3 good things that he's grateful for of his day. And this can be really simple things, as I mentioned, like having food and clean water. And he mentions every time that as long as you don't take things for granted, you can't you can't accept them as a gift to you. You will always focus on what you don't have, and this will make you unhappy. And I even have an app called, I think it's called Grateful or something, and maybe once every 2 weeks or maybe once a month, I write down some stuff that I'm grateful for, it actually helps.
I can imagine. And just for the audience's benefit, what we will do, we will have that information for you in a summary after the webinar. So this will be sent out to you as well. Let me just see here. We have a few questions coming in. One was here from, I'll need to scroll down. We have a question here from Beat Buhlmann. He says, hi, I use communications driver's license to address communication challenge. Like driving a car, we need simple communications driver's license, I think it says. It is one page doc document with mutually accepted do's and don'ts. Any feedback on that?
Oh, I'd love to see that document. This sounds great. I think this is one of the most important things, to actually have a mutual agreement on how to use which technology and when, and in a team. I'm pretty sure this helps avoid a lot of misunderstandings. So if we could share this document, I would be really interested.
Well, here we are, Beat Booman. If you can share that with us, that would be appreciated. We have another question here from Rob Abernat. He says here, hi Sarah, very interesting data. You mentioned that motivation is more important than skill, especially in enduring crisis. Do you have some ideas for maintaining motivation when we all are communicating digitally?
Yeah, this is really hard because, as I mentioned, it's really tiring to be in front of your screen all the time. I think it's important to reduce the amount of meetings and the time in front of a screen, and maybe sometimes go for a walk while being on a call. Maybe you can use your headphones and have the cell phone in your pocket and go for a nice walk and still being discussing important work stuff. And then also, as I mentioned, I think try to contribute to a trusting environment within your team that really should help motivate people. If you trust each other and if you feel like you serve a common purpose, because this is so important. If we're not in the same room, we have to have common goals and purposes as a team, and this will keep us motivated.
Great. We have a few more questions, but unfortunately, the timer right now for Q&A is up. I've noted one or two questions that we will bring up in a panel discussion. So if I would say, I suggest that we'll move on to the second presentation. Thank you very much, Sarah. I look forward to continuing our discussion in a little bit. Chris, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Hi, hello everyone. I'm Chris. So currently, I lead a team around 260 people, 5 locations in 3 countries. So I'd like to share my key 3 challenges when we have to work from home due to the coronavirus, and how I address them and some lessons learned. So hope it can help you a little bit. As a pharmaceutical company, we need to continue delivering drug products to patients. And we also decide to donate our drug products to hospitals for patient treatment. The production and global supply chain are required non-stop. And also due to this virus issue, we have to review and adjust our objectives and KPIs so that the team could work on the right directions. For example, like survive at this time of period and develop if there's any opportunity. And the same as the project delivery, we have to see and how we're gonna manage that properly. So the first challenge is, so everyone stay at home all day. So I need to work, I need to take care of the kids and their web class, their homework, and their family meals. So by the way, my wife is the family boss, so she has to work as well. So at the beginning, I feel frustrated and always disturbed by all kinds of things. The family is the first priority, but work is very important, and it is also meaningful for me and for the patients. So I felt I need to make a change. So manage the time as I work in office, although it is very difficult. So I had discussion with my wife, and we sleep the timing with each other. For example, like when she had meetings or calls, I would do emails, document, work as standby. And we also arrange the timing with keys and set discipline. Sometimes it's difficult to follow. And we set a very standard office room and not allow entry unless the door is open. So, and we also set some question time with the keys as well. Yeah. And then the next challenge is that I thought if I have the same problems, I think my team may have the same problem. So apart from the meetings, it is very important to have personal talk with each members. And as a coach, deep listening is really helpful when we talk. So for example, like one of my team shared his trouble with timing of meetings due to the baby care, balanced the timing with all the others. So we have these kind of weekly calls with teams. We ask about their feelings and also try to balance their timing with work and the family issues. So, and we are very open. So we need to work out every proposals when the people said they have some challenges. For example, like we have colleagues working in Hubei province where the virus was found the first place. And we weekly check their condition and family condition to see whether we could help. And we will try to support their work before they came back. So this also drives the engagement of the team. And the third one, the challenge is we have much more meetings by phone calls than before. So I always had back-to-back meetings with headphones to avoid noise, which made me tired and earache. And most of the time we had to repeat and repeat due to poor quality of Wi-Fi, and sometimes or always have some members who are not there with their mind. So there are so many interruptions. So standard work is very important. Meeting breaks is necessary also, as Sarah said, so for everyone. A break also means you could deal with some family issues. For example, like set 15 minutes before each meeting, that's a discipline. So also to help people focus, a small group video call is required. We could see each other and everyone spoke which makes meetings more effective. And document is very important as well. So a little bit different is we use the document for follow-up. So for example, like from the pre-readings, meeting summaries, and action log, a single document with very clear and simple message. And also we track the changes to ensure the traceability. The team will take the actions for every update without any delay. So that's our target. So in summary, so the challenges are different from each other's. So the solution may or may not be appropriate based on the condition. So you need to work out your own working model to make sure that it works for everyone in your team. Interaction with teams should be improved with daily AAR, after action review, about what works well and not well for improvement. So we need to change step by step when we have problem. We cannot change everything in one day. That's really difficult and challenge for everyone. That's it from me. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris, for your insights. You know, I have here a few questions that popped up. It's quite interesting to see. One thing that we would like to ask is, you know, people very often talk about being efficient at work, right? So office layouts, the way you work, it should be efficient. But you emphasize that particularly working from home in so remote collaboration, that it's much more important to focus on effectiveness. And so what are some of the key success factors that you have experienced to drive that effectiveness over the last 2-3 months?
I think effectiveness will create confidence and engagement with virtual working with chaos at home, especially at this time of period. So what I would suggest for the success factors, one is the standard work. You need to align with your family, you need to align with your colleagues, and set up a standard work as a basis and work on how we're gonna manage it and change it based on this standard work. Another one is as you mentioned, the office-like environment. So you need to make your emotional readiness for this, for the work. So I would suggest the office room is well prepared. So for my family, for example, like my wife and myself, we use different office room, and we just close the door with each other. Everything's set there for the laptop, for the document to review. Everything is ready there, so it makes it works. Another one is the quick response and problem solving. So if there's a problem from team or from anyone else, so we need to document that and solve it immediately. We cannot leave the problem alone for some time. Another one is a simple and a clear document and preparation. So because if we write a long document with everything included, people are reluctant to read and understand. So also there's a risk of misunderstanding. And break is necessary between the calls. Otherwise, people will feel frustrated.
Okay, that makes certainly a lot of sense. 2 points that I'd like to bring up in your answer. One is that I saw a note from Dieter Kaufold, who actually mentioned that emails are not very good and WeChat is a much better tool. That corresponds to what you just said. If you want to have a quick feedback, maybe WeChat or WhatsApp is a better tool to communicate quickly. However, that is also a challenge because then you're constantly communicating, and wouldn't that maybe reduce the potentially the effectiveness of your work if you're constantly on these social media tools? That's my first question for you.
So we use the WeChat at beginning for meeting, but it is not very much effective. We cannot see each other, and by the way, there's also limitation for the meetings to involve. So we use Zoom then. That's some learning we had during this crisis. And in terms of the email, yeah, we don't need to write a long email for every meetings or every task. So we need to have a clear document principle. So for example, like for me, the meeting minutes should be written based on the decision to make, problem to solve, action to take, with what, when, who. Very simple and clear. And we also need to prepare pre-readings for people to well understand, so that when we have the meeting calls, it will be very effective. So we just question on what we have read, then we respond.
Okay. Yeah. Do you email those documents, or do you use a different tool to share the documents?
So we use email, and then we change to shared drive. So we don't need to email. So everyone just read the shared drive document.
So those were the tools that you changed. Good. The second follow-up question is looking at comments as well. You have the luxury to have 2 home office spaces. That's great. You have a wife that can coordinate with you, or as you said, your boss at home. What about if people don't have that space, don't have the luxury of having all the space at home? What are some of the tools that you would suggest? You might have team members that don't have that environment.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I don't have that luxury room. I use my bedroom and also my kids' bedroom. So they are sitting in open area. So I mean, so maybe close to the kitchen. So they study. This is the reason why we use the earphone. So to make sure that there's no background noise, which is with each other. So, and if you mention that, for example, you only have one room for everyone, that might be really difficult because the kids yelling, and also you need to work and your wife need to work. Maybe sometimes your wife yelling, or sometimes you are not quite in a calm situation. So I had discussion with my wife about that as well. So that's we arrange the meetings. If possible, we arrange the meetings from, one by one. So when I have a meeting, so she will work on document and some other key activities. She need to work, no need to have a calls. And when she has a meeting, I will try to do some document work and take out the keys. So, but I know that there will be difficulties that you are not the boss. So your wife is not boss as well. So your boss set the meetings together. So you have to balance this. So in this case, I don't have a, at this moment,
no, that makes a lot of sense.
Idea. Yeah.
So more organized, essentially. Before we move on, I think we have a little bit more time. We have a question here from Sophia. I don't know her last name, but she's asking some quite interesting, has an interesting point here. My question is, if we are able to solve the issue of remote work in such an effective way, during this time of the pandemic, does it prove that we can actually work from home in the long term? So if one of my employees gives me a request to work from home in the future, what response should I give her?
I think that could be. I mean, so the first thing I thought is, I think it is possible to work in different locations. So based on your job condition, I mean, so if I want to respond this question, so first is based on your working purpose and the content, right? So if that means you could work remotely, so why not you can work in at your home or work in the office. So that could be one of the option, but you need to set very clear expectation and objectives for members, rather than just you can go or you cannot go. So I'm a result-driven person, so you can deliver the result, that's fine. But for example, like you should not work all the time at home. So you need, for example, like monthly or weekly, you need to show up. You need to have a connection with your colleagues.
Yeah, that makes certainly a lot of sense. Great. Well, thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate your insights and answers. What I'd like to do is move over to the panel discussion. So I'd like to ask Sarah to come back into our conversation here. Welcome back. In terms of starting off, we have a few interesting questions that popped up right now on the screen. But what I would like to start with, actually, I can start with a question here from Felix Mössner. And what he's asking, and I'd love to get the feedback from both of you and your perspective on this, is which do you find important for high performance during home office? Is it A, positive feedback, B, social support, C, job autonomy in tasks, or D, any other? So positive feedback, social support, job autonomy, or anything else. Sarah, do you want to?
Yeah, I can start off. I like to say that I think all of them are important. That Felix mentioned positive feedback. It helps with the trust that I mentioned. Social support. It's also about the empathy part that I tried to highlight. Job autonomy tasks is very important for people who have a responsibility and they actually want to work independently, and it keeps them motivated if they can choose when to work on their tasks. Some people are morning people, other people are, they work better at night or during the day. And it's nice to actually use these opportunities of this crisis to adapt a little bit the shifts as long as you can. Chris mentioned that if you're not a boss, sometimes you have to adapt to your boss's schedules. And so as long as you can, it's important to find a time when you work best and to stick to that. And the two other things I'd like to add to Felix's list, which is the one, the predictable time off that I mentioned. It's important to know that you're going to have time off during the weekend, and that you don't have to be connected to your workplace during the weekend, and that you can actually focus on your private lives. And the second one I'd like to add is to really have a comfortable chair and table to work from home. This will keep you motivated. And some companies actually have extra budget to hand over to their employees to spend on an office chair at home, because now people are forced to work from home, and this could help work more effectively if you don't have like pain in your shoulders because you sat on the couch or an uncomfortable chair.
Yeah, or have to work out of the kitchen. right? Because
Yeah.
it's not good. Okay, Chris, anything to add there? No?
Yeah, I think those ideas are very much reasonable, and also I think to make people motivated, it's very important for be personal.
Mm-hmm.
So we are all human beings, and we need to understand how we're going to support the team, how we're going to support each other at this time of period. So to make the work on a right track, but also to make the family in a good shape. So I think positive feedback, sure, no problem. This is very important because when we have some discussions, so how are we going to engage people? And also sometimes we need to give them some direct feedback with positive thinking. I mean, so for example, if your people have some difficulties or they don't show up or they are not concentrate, you probably need to give them some direct feedback, but a very positive emotional connection. So make sure that they feel, yeah, so something you need to work out. Give them some direct instruction or the guidance like a mentor, help them to over this kind of a difficult time.
Okay, that makes certainly a lot of sense. So these are some themes that we're here over again. Just a quick note to all the listeners. If you have questions, please click on Q&A. It's on the bottom of your screen. Type your question in, and please make sure it's not a statement, but a question for our panelists. If you want to discuss with the rest of the group, of course, you can type in your chat function. So just a quick reminder. Thank you. Good. I'd like to have a quick follow-up to the statement that we just had here about looking at what works best during this crisis. And so one thing that came up also twice now, both in Chris's and presentation and Sarah's comment here, was to make the best out of this crisis, to make the most out of it. So what can we do? What can companies do, teams do, to leverage the current situation beyond being positive, and improve maybe their own practices? So for example, is there a way we can reset, so to speak, how we do certain things? So what are some of the best practices that you've seen or actually tried out yourselves? Sarah, may I ask you first?
Yeah, we hear a lot that we should actually not go back to normal, that we should have a really new world after this crisis and do everything better. I think this is a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves, especially as we are most probably going into a really bad recession, and a lot of companies will be struggling to actually survive. A lot of people lost their jobs, and this is not this is going to be hard. So I don't think we should put a lot more pressure on ourselves and the companies to actually be the most innovative right now. But still, I think what a lot of people and companies see is the whole discussion about remote work. Especially in Switzerland, there's still a lot of companies who say, no, I don't want people to work from home. I don't think they're productive at home. They're going to do their laundry, they're going to take care of their kids, but they're not going to work effectively from home. They're going to walk to their fridges all the time. And we all know this. And still, for some tasks, we are less distracted when we're at home and can do some document readings and not being interrupted by collaborators all the time. So I think for some companies, it helps seeing them that it's not impossible to work from home, and maybe to let people work 1 or 2 days a week, work from home, and then still actually appreciate what makes it so special to actually meet in person. I think this is going to be something that we'll see after this crisis, that we appreciate that it helps building trust and building relationships when we meet in person. It's nice to see each other in the gallery view on Zoom, but it's a different thing having lunch together or having a coffee break together. And so I think we're going to see a lot more appreciation in that part as well.
Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think what I felt after, for example, like this crisis, what's the meaning by the new condition or the new normal, makes the company more result driven. I mean, so because everyone works from home, and usually we use, for example, like there's a monthly plan, there's a weekly plan. So for everybody to deliver, but sometimes it is not smart. I mean, so this is sometimes very rough for each individual. But now, because everyone works from home, actually in China now people back to work now. So we need to set very clear objectives for everyone. If in the future we have to work from home, or the people said, I want to work from home. Okay, there will be a very clear expectations and objectives you need to deliver, you need to work out. Okay. And also we respect the standard work a lot, because standard work makes people feel great. When we check our daily standard work, so we can tick, it is done. So we can feel a lot of motivation from this kind of a standard work. We solve all the problems today, and there will be some problem tomorrow, but that will be tomorrow. We'll do it tomorrow.
So having daily accomplishments.
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is interesting. One thing that I want to bring up in that regard, of course, daily accomplishments in an office environment is, let's say, from 9 to 6 or whatever the hours are that you work, and there are clear boundaries. One thing that I know working here in China, I've worked in the US and in Europe, these boundaries are different for not only people, but also in different countries and environments. So one thing that we're seeing is that Sarah brought up, that boundaries are very important and that you need to say when you work and when you don't. This is clearly more accepted in Europe, in particular in Northern Europe, less so in the US, and certainly even less so in China. Chris, I understand that sometimes you get messages late at night from your boss, and you might do the same thing to others. So how do you define then these boundaries, and how do you link that to what you just said, these daily achievements and making sure people are productive during their day? So how do you balance that?
Yeah, so in China, especially for the China local company, it is very difficult to set a clear working time. So with intensive requirement and anxiety from top level. So the boss always think a lot of things, and they want quick response, right? So we always get lots of new requirement as the top level is very sensitive to market condition, and they want quick move and response. For example, this coronavirus. So based on that, my experience is like the objectives are reset and aligned with top level as soon as possible. And we need to deliver this to the team with simple and clear messages, and then well get aligned. So what we need to do as soon as possible. And because we work in this company for maybe more than 1 year or 3 years, so we know the behaviors from the top level, right? So the team need to estimate, especially for the leader, the team leaders should estimate what we will get from the boss and get prepared for that and design and plan for that. But it is just something like we can reduce the intensive working time at this moment. It doesn't mean that it will gone, right? So it's still there, we just need to quick adaptability with this kind of requirement.
So what what I'm hearing you say is that you act as a pressure valve, so to speak, between your boss, who wants 24/7 information from you, and your team, who you've agreed on when they actually work and what they need to accomplish when each day. Is that a correct understanding or summary?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. Like if my boss just sent me a message midnight, I will not respond to him. or I just respond to him, can I give you the response tomorrow morning or tomorrow noon time? So then, for example, like tomorrow noon time, so I will send a message early in the morning to my team and make a plan for them so that you need to deliver this to me. And we can have a quick meeting before noon time. The best case is based on the market situation, based on the company situation and the progress of the company's agenda. So I can estimate what my boss needs, right? And then get well prepared. For example, like my boss is the CEO of the company, so I send him a weekly update with the most concern from him, or he wants to know what's the progress of the key projects and the key KPIs, right? I just give him a weekly report. Then he will just reduce his anxiety and concern. Then he will not just send email or send me a message overnight. So far, I worked with him about over 14 months, actually. So now after 10 p.m., he will no longer send me any email or WeChat message. So I think that's a success from me.
Okay, well, 10 p.m., Sarah, is that a good time to end your workday?
Oh, sorry.
No,
no, Sarah. Sorry, Chris. I just wanted to give Sarah an opportunity to comment on that from her side.
Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing this up. I realize this is a highly cultural question, actually. I love the statement culture is the software of the mind, and we have a very different software that we're programmed in, and we think a lot of different things are normal depending on the culture we live in. I realize in Switzerland, and you mentioned Northern Europe and Europe in general, people think it's much less accepted to work at night and on weekends. And even messages past 7 or 8 at night are considered to be like not during the workday anymore. When I lived in the United States, I realized work and leisure are much more blurred, and people have colleagues at work and that are their friends as well. And in Switzerland, I feel like people make much more a difference of these are like my private friends and these are my colleagues at work, and they don't mix that as much. And what I hear is that in China is really you work for your company and you're expected to be always on, and I think it's really hard for your health and your private lives to work like that. But I also realize once you're embedded in a culture or in a company that has this kind of work culture, it's really hard to set your own individual boundaries. Because otherwise you may lose your job because you may not deliver the responses as quickly as possible. And still, I think all the employees have to make an effort to educate their bosses. And I think you already did a great job, Chris, of bringing the whole, the issue of getting messages at midnight to 10 p.m. This may look like a success, and I think it is. But in Switzerland, this would be considered insane, even for like high-powered people.
Okay, that certainly is a big cultural gap. So what are some of the ways we can adjust that? Chris or Sarah, how can we further adjust that? What are some of the tools that we can do? Because Chris, you work with Europe as well. That's part of your responsibility, right? So you're going to deal with Europeans who probably don't want to answer emails at 10 p.m.
Yeah. So actually, yes. If you want to work in the top level, so you need, this is your career expectations. So in this case, you need to work and deliver based on the boss's needs. And if I understand that if some people just work on the, I'm fine with this level, I mean, the manager level or the specialist level or the engineer level, I respect everyone's career expectations. If at this level, I as a leader, am responsible for taking care of them. So if you work at this level, I will try to help them to work in a normal time. But if
Okay. Yeah.
I need to work at my level, so I need to coordinate or cooperate with my boss.
So it's really
so far,
about setting expectations.
yeah. So that's my feelings.
Yeah. Okay, well, appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to say here is we have a question here from John Evans. And what he essentially says here is not everybody has a good work environment at home. Might it be internet connectivity or stable internet, a good computer that is lacking apps that are required. So isn't that, doesn't that mean that companies are required to provide the tools necessary to actually be able to work effectively from home? Because simply people might not be that productive.
Yeah, I think that's an ethical question and also a question of financial possibilities of a company. If a company right now is really struggling to actually survive and they may have to lay off people, then this may not be a priority. So maybe everyone has to contribute the way they can. And still, I understand if there is still money left to actually provide people with good infrastructure. And I also like to highlight the aspect of cybersecurity. We're working from home with our own computers that may not be really secured in the way they should be if we deal with confidential information. So this is also something that companies need to be aware of.
Yeah, and that certainly makes sense. How are you dealing with that, Chris? Any of the are those issues here with your team in China?
I think for China, that may not be a problem because everyone has their own, the electronic instrument, like the laptop, everything's there, and Wi-Fi quality relatively good. But I know some challenges with my team as well. So in terms of that, first, my expectation is you need to work out how you're gonna solve the problem by yourselves. Yes, and I will try my best to support you, right? So, for example, like if you are struggling with attending big meetings with 5 people, so then how are you gonna contribute to the team? How are you gonna connect with the team? So my suggestion is like, you need to send out your questions by email. If you can't, if you don't have this kind of an instrument, I'll try my best to support you. And your questions will be highlighted during the meeting. And you can read the meeting summary by the document. That's what I can do to support you. As Sarah mentioned, also, it is, some companies are also struggling about surviving, right? So that may not be possible. And at the beginning of this crisis in China, we are not allowed to go far beyond our home. So we have to stay at home, everyone. In this case, so I will try my best to support my team. And you need to figure out how you're going to work out.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. Well, we're almost at the end of our hour here. We have 2 more minutes. What I'd like to do briefly, I'd like to take 30 seconds to summarize some of the key points that we've heard, and then I will hand it over to our host, Tobias, at Swiss Next. So one thing that I've heard today, Sarah and Chris, is essentially it's very important that we are taking advantage of this crisis to change, and that we don't think that there is a way back to just a regular normal. There is going to be a new normal, and that requires us to be, for example, more organized, no matter at home with our family, but also with our team, and making sure that we set up these calls, organize when we have calls at home so we don't conflict with our wives or husbands, right? And it's important to stay positive. You mentioned that flexibility of doing your best, seeing what the company's needs are. Everybody's in a difficult spot. Clearly we want to have that perfect work environment, but we might not be able to get it right now. So we are doing our best and see how the teams can support each other. One thing that I thought was very interesting as well, the last point that I would like to bring up here is this time has given us an opportunity to see how important in-person meetings are. And Sarah brought it up that we shouldn't take human interaction for granted. So while these tools are of course very good to solve this over a period of time, full time, down the road in the future, we might be doing this part-time and then hopefully have much more productive and meaningful personal interactions when we do meet in person. Again, I would like to take this opportunity to thank both speakers slash panelists for their introductions to their topic, and of course the insights they gave now also during this panel discussion. Thank you very much to Zurich, Dr. Sarah Genner, and thank you very much, Chris Chung, here in Shanghai. I would like to say thank you to Swiss Next for hosting this with GlowCoach, and I would like at this point to hand it over to our host, Tobias. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Andre, Sarah, and Chris, for this insightful and truly stimulating discussion. I'm sure we all got at least a few nuggets of practical wisdom out of this webinar. Now, before you log off, feel free to scan the QR codes at the bottom of this page to follow up with SwissNext China and GlowCoach as well. Also, if you have any questions or suggestions, then please write us an email to academicrelations@swissnextchina.org. Now, I want to thank again our speakers and our moderator and wish you all an enjoyable rest of your day. We hope, of course, to see you again in one of our next webinars. Thank you very much indeed, and goodbye.